𝗂𝗧𝗵𝗶𝘀, a very warm welcome to all. I'm 𝗕𝗂𝗶𝘀𝗀𝗃, your host for today's talk show. Today we're honored to have with us two esteemed guests for a special talk show on the theme Buddhism and Youth, a pathway to clarity in the 21st century. Our guest is none other than Lama Shinfen, a renowned Buddhist Lama whose work has touched many lives, especially young people, offering them guidance on overcoming challenges such as substance abuse and finding a path towards self-reflection, recovery, and purpose. And we have 𝗧𝗹𝗸𝗀𝗀𝗃, a very good friend of Lama Shinfen and a very knowledgeable person who will be helping Lama Shinfen today. Today's session is particularly exciting as we are joined by a group of brilliant students from the Royal Thimphu College. These students have come prepared with thoughtful questions and curiosities about Buddhism. We look forward to hearing their perspectives as they engage in a meaningful dialogue with our guests today, and hopefully explore how Buddhism's timeless wisdom continue to offer purpose, clarity, and well-being in today's rapidly changing world. And you might notice that our students are in casual dresses, as it is a very special request from Lama Shinfen so that they can have a very casual discussion today. Now, without further delay, let's warmly welcome our guest, Lama Shinfen, 𝗧𝗹𝗸𝗀𝗃, and our students to this talk show. All right, so now that we're all set, let's get started with our discussion. So here's how today's session will work. After I ask the first question, we will then open up the floor for our students. You may ask your questions, and please feel free to share your thoughts and experiences related to Buddhism and how it connects with your life. So to kick things off, let me begin with the first question. Many young people, especially in this modern era, have misconceptions or doubts about Buddhism, viewing it as something complex or totally unrelated to their daily lives. How do you address these doubts? And what simple, practical Buddhist principles would you recommend for the young people to integrate into their daily routines?
Buddhism could look complicated because the Buddha, it's said to give 84,000 means to reach awakening to the truth. So the ultimate aim of Buddhism is to awaken to the truth. That's it. Nothing else. Everything else is just a side product, okay? We sometimes forget that and we think it's for peace and that. These are just side products. So because the Buddha gave so many means, people might think it's confusing. So it's like going, maybe you have a stomach problem, and you go into the pharmacy, and the pharmacy has hundreds of different stomach medicines, so you get confused. But actually, you only need to take one. And then that one will be decided by the doctor. So although it looks confusing on the outside, if you have a 𝗧𝗹𝗶𝘀𝗀𝗃 Lama who will guide you, then you don't have to do all the practices. And similarly, the philosophy looks complicated. But again, the main points of Buddhism are all pointed at from different angles. They were debating in olden time in India. The Buddha used to debate with other religions and other philosophies. So basically they all come to the same point. It's just looking at different angles at the same main points. And you don't have to study all of those. Like you come in the library here and you're doing your particular study. You don't have to read all the books in the library. You just study what you need. And if you look at many of the great lamas of the past, they didn't really study at all. They have a basic view of what Buddhism teaches. Without the view, it won't work. But they didn't study all the philosophy. In fact, many don't study at all. They just practice. They have the 𝗧𝗹𝗶𝗀𝗀 Lama who will explain to them the practice, and they do it, and that's it. So it can look complicated, but actually it really isn't. It's just that the Buddha gave so many methods, like the pharmacy shop that has so many different kinds of medicine. But as I said, you don't need to take them all. You don't need to read all the packets. You just need to take one or two as directed. That's it. So it's not that complicated, but you do at some point need a teacher. So beginning, you should probably read about Buddhism, get some ideas about Buddhism, and then slowly you should connect with a teacher that you associate with. And it should take time. Don't rush to find a 𝗧𝗹𝗶𝗀𝗀𝗃 Lama, because once you get deeper with the Lama, you can't say, oh, I don't want to study with him. That's not a good way of practice. So you should take time, and then the teacher should get to know you, and then slowly you'll be guided by that teacher. You don't have to think about all the philosophy and all the methods, okay? So we should think of it as Buddhism as being very rich in options, actually. Yeah, it's not like a little shop in the village where they only have one kind of medicine. It's like going to a big city with so many options. It's like that. So don't get confused by them, because you don't need to study them all. It's just that there are many options, which is good. Actually, the Buddhas realize that we all have different capacities, different needs. So there are different medicines, if you like, for our particular character and personality. And for daily life, modern times, is that what you asked? Yeah.
Yes.
It's essential. I mean, without wisdom, without guidance, we can't manage. People will look, say, to the Western countries, to the developed countries, and think we want to be like that. But I grew up in the West, and if I'm honest, the society is a little bit disastrous. When we have drug addicts on the streets, we have homeless on the streets, communities are broken. Our education systems don't really aim to turn out good human beings. They turn to make you academic. And I think they probably go back to the British time when the British were colonial leaders. And the aim of the colonies was power and wealth. So the education system the country created was based for that. So, okay, it had its purpose for what the British wanted to do as a colonial power, but it doesn't necessarily make good human beings. Yeah? And when you have a good society, kind people, people who are cooperating, I think that's probably more important than anything else. Of course, wealth is good. It's nice to have things. It's nice to have cars. It's nice to have good clothes. Buddhism is not against that, but you also need the wisdom. Without that wisdom, those things can actually become an attachment. They can actually create jealousy, create more craving. So without that wisdom, these things alone will not bring you happiness. So Buddhism is very much related to the present, and from 2,500 years ago until now, it's been continuously very relevant.
Thank you so much for the insightful answer. Now we'll open up the floor for the students. How shall we start them now? Okay, so whoever wants to go first can raise their hands, stand up, and ask your questions. Is there anyone who wants to go first?
He's going to have to point back you. Okay,
oh, okay.
Our artist.
Hello, so my name is 𝗬𝗹𝗪𝗀, and my question is, to what extent did political power and economic interest influence the doctrinal development within Buddhism throughout the history? And my second question is, to be a good human being, like how can one define as a good human being?
Those are good questions. We should ask them to you because they're more difficult. He's more knowledgeable than me. Okay, if you talk about political, okay. Political and social, what did you say? Power?
Political power and economic interest.
Okay. The essence of Buddhism has not changed, okay? From the time of the Buddha. That's there. That's in the texts. But the culture around Buddhism has changed dramatically. So each country has different ways of living, if you like, but still called Buddhist. But we have to recognize that Buddhists and Buddhism are totally different. Yeah? So the economic, it has molded the culture, if you like, the way of looking at it. In some ways, it's corrupted the teachings of the Dharma. In many cases, it has become corrupted. Human beings like money, they like power. So that has happened. But the essence of the essence of the teachings have not changed at all. Those are still there. So sometimes we have to separate the culture from the essence. The culture is important. You can think of it like a cup. So we need the cup to drink the tea, but it's the tea we want. And ultimately, it doesn't really matter whether the cup is made of gold or made of plastic. It still allows us to enjoy the tea. So sometimes the cup might be a little corrupted, maybe a little old or broken or twisted, but the tea is the same, okay? So sometimes we have to ensure that we know what the essence is. So yes, definitely, Buddhism has been used by corrupt individuals for its own benefits. But the essence of Buddhism has not changed, because that's written in the 𝗕𝗂𝗃 and 𝗕𝗃𝗃, no? 𝗕𝗃𝗃. He studied, I didn't study, he should be answering these. I'm just wandering around like a street dog. But anyway, so the 𝗕𝗃𝗃 and 𝗕𝗃𝗃 have these, hold the essence. So we can always refer back. We can always refer, the Buddha did not say that, you know. So the 𝗕𝗃𝗃 is the actual teachings of the Buddha, and 𝗕𝗃𝗃, we pronounce 𝗕𝗃𝗃, is more like where the interpretations of the Indian masters who explained it. So those are there for us, and at the moment there's a big group called 84,000 translating the words of the Buddha, which are translating all the 𝗕𝗃𝗃 and 𝗕𝗃𝗃 into English so that it will be preserved, because as it goes to the West, or it moves from countries of its traditional influence, such as the Himalayan area, distortions will come in. Some people might not like something, not necessarily because it's corruption. They might not think, oh, I don't like the idea of karma. It doesn't fit with me, so they take it out. So, but when you got the original text, they say, no, the Buddha taught this. You cannot take it out, you know? Because some people might think they don't understand something and they don't like it, so they just omit it. Yeah, and then, so it is getting twisted in the West. And a lot of things are being done for using Buddhism as a way to relax, to chill out. But that's not what the Buddha taught. So again, we can go back to the original teachings. So those are preserved. Then, of course, in our Himalayan area, we have Guru Rinpoche with the Tantric teachings. And Guru Rinpoche also planted many dharma in sacred places. Taksan in Paro has a lot. Jakar in Bumtang has a lot, which are there. And those are supposed to be found at the appropriate time. So when the world needs that teaching, it will be right. And at this time, when the world is going through a lot of troubles, I mean, wars are there, global warming is coming, there's a lot of, we can all feel that the world is kind of unstable at the moment. And it is said that this is the time that our kind of Buddhism here, the Tantric Buddhism, will burn even brighter because it's very strong. Yeah? And that the teachings of like Guru Rinpoche, who are hidden as dharma, will be available in order for us to keep the Dharma alive and appropriate for the time. Was that correct? Anyone add anything?
I think yes.
He's shy, but he's smarter than me. He studied, and he's done retreats, he's done everything.
Maybe then she can add on it.
Buddhism is all about the studies of, I think, life. What is life, I think. And then to our second question, to be a good human being, right? I think we all want to be like open-minded. We don't want to have prejudice, no?
Yes.
I think. So to have that, I think we need to have a bird's eye view. I think the bird's eye view means in Buddhist sense, like the awakening to the truth. With the truth, we mean like 4 seals, right?
4 seals, yes.
Yeah, 4 seals. So I think if you have this bird's eye view of whole, the phenomena of what's life, I think you have the compassionate nature. It will come up naturally, I think. And then, we have empathy, natural empathy on. So I think with that bird's eye view, I think you will have, you'll naturally become like
good human
being.
Because according to Buddhism, you see, it's different from other philosophies maybe. Sorry, I'm interrupting. Buddhism believes that we are naturally good. So we're not trying to create goodness, okay? According to Buddhism, our mind, our Buddha nature, is naturally good. In fact, Trungpa Rinpoche called it basic goodness, okay? So what makes us, and rather than saying, how do we become a good human being, so you say, why are we not a good human being? It's because of our ignorance. We see things incorrectly, and therefore we react incorrectly. But what we see incorrectly, we call ignorance, is not part of our Buddha nature. So Buddhists often use the idea of a sky. So the sky, the blue sky is always there. So today you can't see it, right? But is it still there or not? It's still there, right? So the Buddhist aim of practice is not to create the sky, it's to clear away the clouds. And the reason we can do that is because the clouds are not part of the sky. It's like a diamond. So we have the diamond inside us, and the diamond is impacted with mud. But does the mud change the color of the diamond? No. Does it destroy its ability to shine? No. So the Buddhist practice is actually only to clear away the mud. And like a person who sells gems, he knows that the mud is not in the gemstone. That's why he has the faith to clean it. Yeah? So with Buddhism, we know that our mind is not tarnished by the wrong thinking and wrong action. So that's why we do practice. If it's tarnished, then there's no point. Buddhism will not work. Same as the gemstone will not work. It's not worth to clean it. Okay? So it's kind of like that. So become a good human being is when we get rid of the ignorance. Okay? That's not part of us. It's not part of our nature. Then you naturally shine. That's our original nature, because then you have no reason not to. You know, that's just our nature. It's like the sun shining. The sun doesn't try to be good. The sun doesn't try to help people. It doesn't say, I'm going to shine on him, but I'm not shining on her. It doesn't have that agenda also. It just shines. That's its nature. So that's where we see the Buddha, the Bodhisattvas are compassionate. But at that level, even the word compassionate, it sounds forced. They're just the way they are. There's no reason to hurt others. That's just their nature. Okay? Does that make sense? Your answer was better, but still.
Anyone who wants to go next?
I'm honored and grateful for your opportunity to engage with you today. So my name is 𝗬𝗓𝗀𝗀𝗵 and I am in my 4th year of BSc Environmental Management. Your wisdom and compassion are the source of inspiration for all of us, and I feel privileged learning from you. With your kind permission, I would like to ask a few questions I believe will help us understand how we can apply Buddhist teachings in our life. First, Buddhism emphasizes the importance of compassion. How can we practice true compassion in today's fast-paced world where stress and conflict often seems overwhelming? Second, many people struggle with self-doubt or inner conflict. What initial step would you recommend for those seeking to begin the path towards inner peace and mindfulness? Finally, as Bhutan rapidly modernizes, how can we as an individual maintain a balance between embracing development and preserving our spiritual and cultural values?
Good questions. I'll probably have to ask you to review them again. Do you have any comment on compassion?
Yeah, we have in Buddhism like many practices of metta practice, right? Loving kindness practice. And Buddhism, I think, when we loving kindness practice, not just to human being, I think it's very vast. It extends to even like animals. And to a higher teaching like Vajrayana, I think it even extends to even the 5 elements. So I think Buddhism has lots to offer in this case.
Yeah, there are basic practices to work on to bring up that. You know, you can, if you do our practices, say in Vajrayana, where we are doing prostrations, for example, when we're doing a practice, we visualize first. We put the people we don't like in front of us. So they are the ones that we send first. So that kind of breaks it down. You know, that they are not the bad ones. You know, then what is bad and good? You know, we look at our mind. We do a Hatong practice. Why do we not like that person? Why do we not like that situation? Maybe it's because they put us in a situation we don't like. We can't deal with it. For example, I come to your office in 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏, okay, and then I say to you something, and you come and shout at me, okay? And I don't like it, but if I can deal with you really well, I can deal with you. I won't feel angry. In fact, I'll feel a little happy. But if I can't deal with you and I don't know what to do, I'll feel angry. I'll shout at you. I'll say, get out of my office. But the reason was I couldn't get out of that situation looking good. I didn't know how to deal with you. Yeah? So I shouted. So most of the anger comes from situations like that. A protection of our image of ourselves. We think, I'm perfect. I'm a good person. I'm a nice person. And then somebody comes and puts us in a situation that makes us doubt that. We get angry at them, you know. So Buddhism would not try, I mean, there are basic practices to have compassion for you, but then you should look at, why do I have that impression of me? Do I make those mistakes? Do I have that problem? I do, but it's not solid. So it doesn't mean we look at ourselves as being bad. Yeah, I'm a bad person. What they said was correct. It's not that. We look at it and we accept, yeah, I do have those problems. I do have those faults, and admit it. And then also understand that they're not part of our nature. We do have Buddha nature beyond that, so we can clear them away. They're not solid, okay? So I think when you work on it from both directions, natural kindness will come out. The need to attack others and need to defend, that ego thing will disappear. You don't need to protect. You admit it. Yeah, I do have that problem. Why do you always say that? Yeah, I do always make mistakes. Yeah, I do have the habit. You come to my office and say, why you made mistakes? Most people will be defensive. What do you mean? You make mistakes too. But if you look at it and say, yeah, I do make a lot of mistakes. Then they say, how you got this job? Normally we'll say, oh, you'll be angry. You can say, yeah, actually my friend's mother works in the office. She got me the job. You can make it kind of like, then are you an idiot? And you say, yeah, sometimes I think I am pretty dumb, You take it away, you don't have to be defensive, because the thing you defend him doesn't really exist. It's just something we've created. We call it ego. Yeah? But on the other hand, you don't have to think of yourself as being bad. I make mistakes, I do bad things. As I said, Buddha nature is pure. So when you take away those things that we attach to, it begins to shine through. So there are both methods. One's to, like Damshi said, to work on it, to look at it, and to build up compassion, but ultimately it's to clear away the reasons for not having compassion, what is blocking our natural compassion. So we call karuna in Sanskrit, is it Sanskrit? Karuna, which is compassion. And mahakaruna is when that difference between you and I have gone. It just pours forward like the sunlight. And there's no you and there's no I. That's a little bit higher realization, but that's the direction we move. Yeah, it's until then it opens up a little bit. So Mahakaruna is the ultimate goal of non-duality, just me and the sun shining, just representing, just expressing our own nature. Does that make sense? Please tell me if you don't. You don't have to say Lasla. You can also say, oh, that didn't make sense, Lama, please explain more. We have to clarify our doubts. That's the point. Yeah? Yes, what was your second one? I forgot already.
So, the second question was, many people struggle with self-doubt or inner conflict. So, what initial step would you recommend for those seeking to begin the path towards inner peace or mindfulness?
Ideas? Me? Yeah. I think the same. Inner doubt. Be yourself. Be yourself. We're trying to think, oh, I'm smart, I'm intelligent, and then you don't become an A student, you feel bad. So what? Does being an A student make you any better as a human being than a C student? Does it make you any worse person because you have a small car or a bicycle and they have a big car? It doesn't. You be yourself. You do your very best. You do your best, and at the end of the day, you mess up. That's all you can do. You can't go beyond that. There was a story, a Zen story, I think it's from Taiwan, where the teacher was, when he was younger, he had he stuttered a lot, stutter, stammer, he couldn't get his words out, and he felt very shy. So he felt very bad about himself. So he went to this master who was a Zen master. Zen is a kind of Buddhism you get in Taiwan and Japan and China. And he was like a lion. He doesn't care about anybody, strong. So he said, hey, master, please, I want to be like you. Can I study with you? And the master said, you can study with me, but practicing Zen or practicing Buddhism is useless. You will not change. And he thought, he's just saying that to encourage me maybe. So he became a monk and he studied with that master for 20 years. Then the master passed away. Then he reflected on that story and he thought, actually, he hadn't changed. The master was born like that. The master told him at that time, I was like this from birth, not because of Buddhism. Sorry, I missed that part. The master said he's like a sunflower. That's the way he was from birth. He was like that. And he said, you were more like a little, I don't know, in Bhutan we'd say poppy, maybe, a little blue poppy. Small and cute, yeah? But he said, at the end of the day, he never became the sunflower because it's different. The seeds, his character is different. But what did change was he was no longer shy. He was no longer embarrassed about being a little poppy. The poppy is also beautiful. The poppy also has its characteristic. And nobody will say the sunflowers don't look down on the poppies and say, you're small and, not very bright, And the poppies don't feel shy against us. So they both have their quality. But they both have to open. And I think what he said before was, as the poppy, he was afraid to open. He was shy. Now he thinks, hey, I'm just a poppy. But he opened as a poppy. I think that not as arrogance, but to be proud of what we can do our best. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to be the smartest. There's always going to be somebody smarter than us. There's always going to be somebody cooler than us. There's always going to be somebody more beautiful than us. And if you compare to others, we lose our freedom. So don't compare. Do the best you can. Try the best you can. Admit your mistakes. Admit you're a human being. Apologize for your mistakes and move forward. That's what I would suggest. That makes sense? Yes? You can take that back to Nalam. Do you want to add something?
I think, we have, as Lama said, we have to have comfort for who you are, I think. And then one is, you should not expect validation from outside. Yeah? You try to seek inside validation. And then validation, yeah.
Validation.
And self-criticism, and I think you have to seek inside. That's the main thing, I think. And beyond that, I think that's the thing I could say right now.
So the last question was, as Bhutan rapidly modernizes, how can we as an individual maintain a balance between embracing development and preserving spiritual and cultural values?
There's no conflict there between spiritual. Buddhism is not against science. It's not against development. The Buddha never said you have to live in a hut or in a cave. In fact, you don't even have to wear these things. It's about inner practice. And I think it's more necessary now than ever, because Buddhism is basically making us sane. It's sanity. And the world is losing that sanity. We're getting lost. This is why we're having wars. This is why we're having global warming. But Buddhism teaches everything is interdependent. If people really understood how we're connected, we would not have global warming, because we're hurting ourselves, actually. Yeah. There's another story I heard in Taiwan, where the heart, the liver, I almost said the kidneys, kidneys at the back, okay? And one day, the heart and the kidneys, I think, forgot that they were connected. The heart became very proud. Hey, I'm the heart. I'm the head of this body. I'm in charge. And then the liver got upset, saying, hey, who said you're in charge? We're also very important. We clear out the toxins. And they started to argue and fight. And the heart became very selfish. And the heart said, I'm not going to give the blood to you anymore. Forget it. I'm keeping the blood for myself. The liver said, okay, I'm not cleaning out the toxins. Then the kidneys joined in, and they said, I'm not going to give any fluid to you guys. Forget it. What happened to the body? It died. It got sick, and it died, including the heart, the liver, and the kidneys. This is what Buddhism is teaching from 2,500 years ago. We are interconnected. We don't exist independently. But we forget that. So now we have industrialists polluting the planet, throwing garbage in the rivers. And not only at that level, even ourselves, we have to look at, are we throwing plastic? Are we buying plastic when we go out, you know? We're connected to the world around us. And if we understand that, then we understand that by helping the planet, we are helping ourselves. If the heart gives the blood, the liver cleans out the toxins, the body becomes strong, which means the heart, the liver, and the kidneys, right? So Buddhism has this wisdom, and it explains how things work, which we don't have in most other philosophies and countries. If you say to a kid, say in the UK, you should be good, he'll say, why? You say, no, you should be good, you should help others. He say, I don't want to help others. There's nothing they can do other than punish. We can explain. We are connected to our family. We are connected to our community. We are connected to our kingdom. When Bhutan is strong and wealthy, we will be strong and wealthy. Yeah? If you go to a wealthy country like Japan or Taiwan, even the beggars are okay. And they're fine. They don't really think they even have beggars, no, but even the homeless are fine. But if you go to a poor country and they do the same thing, they just sit on the street, they're starving. But because they're connected to that society, that country, they also come up. No? So I think Buddhism has the perfect answer for all this, really. And I think without Buddhism, without teaching at least the seals of Buddhism, all things are impermanent, all things are empty, which means connected, I don't know whether countries will do that well in the future. I mean, to face these problems. I think these are really essential to put in the education system, the wisdom of the Buddha. Because I think these days, countries everywhere are obsessed with science, and it's fine. Learning science is good. We have to progress scientifically. But what is the latest scientific discovery will be out of date by the time most people graduate. In 50 years, it won't be used at all. It'll be obsolete. And in 100 years, we'll probably be laughing at it. If you think back to the scientific discoveries 100 years ago, they look so primitive. But what the Buddha taught, all things are compounded. All things are impermanent. These basic things, all emotions are pain, these things will never change. But somehow we neglect to teach that to our youth. But with that knowledge, we'll fix with anything, whatever else you do, math, science, I don't know, art, anything. This will really help. Once you've got that view, things change. It adapts to the way you work. I think this is Bhutan's gem. This is Bhutan's gift to the world, actually. And I really hope we can preserve it.
Who wants to go next? Can students ask one question at a time?
Respected Lama, my name is 𝗕𝗂𝗶𝘁𝗵 and I am a BA English study student of first year. It's an honor and privilege to meet and have a conversation with such a highly wisdom Lama and another wisdom Lama. And here are some questions that I'm gonna say in front of in the altar of Lama. And two questions are kind of related to my life since I'm kind of struggling with stress and anxiety. Question number one is, what is the significance of Buddhism? What is the significance of the Four Noble Truths in Buddhism? Question number two, how does concept of karma influence ethical behavior and decision making in Buddhist practice? Question number three, what role does meditation play in achieving mindfulness and spiritual growth?
I guess you all know, I don't know whether you learned this, the Buddha's life. When the Buddha went to 𝗤𝗏, because the Buddha was a prince, right? And he left the palace because he could see that whatever we have, no matter how much wealth we have, no matter how rich we are, no matter how many luxuries we have, there is still going to be suffering. Yeah? At the very least, there'll be sickness, probably old age. Not everyone gets that one. And then death, okay? At the very least, but other things too. So he wanted to help his citizens. So he went out to the world to discover what is the essence, how to help them go over this pain. So when he sat under the tree in 𝗤𝗏, that was what his realization was. I mean, he had many realizations, but the first one he thought he would teach to the world is that one. So he walked from 𝗤𝗏 to Varanasi, to Sarnath, where he met the 5 ascetics, the way he practiced meditation before, and he taught the Four Noble Truths. Yeah? That basically, that everything, life is suffering. But suffering is not a good word. The English word doesn't fit. When we say suffering, it sounds like you're having a backache or something. It means disappointment, disillusionment. Things don't work exactly as you see it, okay? So that's what he taught. But if the Buddha had stopped like that, he's like a doctor saying, oh my God, you've got so many problems. Yeah, you've got this problem, this problem, life is tough. Then nobody will go to that doctor. But he did prescribe. He said there are methods to leave suffering, to realize, to go beyond suffering. And then he taught methods to achieve that goal. Okay? So that is the significance. Basically, he's saying how the world is. Yeah? That we do suffer. And you might think, yeah, I get a headache sometimes, or I get a backache, but I'm not suffering. But it means nothing quite fits because the way we see the world is not actually correct. So this might be a little complicated, but I'll just throw it in for the moment. We see the world incorrectly. It's like we see a mirage. You know a mirage? You get in the desert. So you see a mirage which is maybe of an oasis, and you're thirsty. So you think, wow, that will quench my thirst. So you crawl across the desert to the mirage, but it doesn't exist as you saw it. It did exist. You could see something, but when you got there, it was not substantial. There was no water. Yeah? So according to Buddhism, everything we see is like that. It's not really as we see it. It's kind of joined together, and we put a label on it. Okay? But instead of looking at the mirage, instead of looking at the oasis, the guys usually go to the next one, the next oasis, and the next oasis, and the next oasis. And then they never get satisfaction. They never quench their thirst. Okay? So the Buddha said in life is the same thing. Okay? In life is the same. So, so what he was trying to do is correct that view. This is the path, to see the reality. When you see the reality, then you stop craving those things. You see that the oasis is not going to satisfy you. Okay? So that's basically the whole Buddhist path. That life is unsatisfactory. It's filled with disappointment. But that's not a pessimistic view, it's a reality. We all go through pain. Every day we have something. We get our first text in the morning, think, oh no, what to deal with this? We put something on Facebook, you get thumbs down, and everybody's like, oh, I was so excited with my post, and everybody hated it. And so it's always like that. Of course, we get moments of joy, but even the moments of joy, you're in a party with your friends, and then you suddenly think, oh, I wish this would go on forever. Once you get that thought, the joy is gone. To some degree, you're attaching to it. There's a kind of feeling of wishing it to last forever. You know, everything is impermanent. Everything ends. This is another reason things will never be permanently happy. So that's the significance of the Four Noble Truths. So basically, the Buddha was stating how the world is, and that there are methods to address that. Yeah, was that correct? You studied. I didn't. You should know.
I think the first truth of suffering, I think Buddha said you have to accept, know the suffering. And then Buddha said you have to know the source of the suffering, cause of the suffering. And then you have to tackle that cause, I think. And then the source is you have craving, you have ignorance, you have attachments. And then when we focus on the three, it's the mind actually who is craving it, and who is ignorance of ourselves, who we are. And in Mahayana level, yes, as Lama said, ourself actually is Buddha by nature. So actually, yeah, with this we can have self-confidence actually, gain confidence that we actually have Buddha nature. The contemporary problems we have is actually self-doubt, right, and resilience. We don't have resilience. I think this will give, if we have this trust in our own self, be yourself, we can tackle it, I think.
Yeah, good. Yeah, as 𝗵𝗪𝗀 said, don't try to escape. Buddha said, not to escape the suffering, to know it, to understand it. That's important. Understand, know suffering, which is what we do in meditation. We look at it.
The next question is, how does the concept of karma influence ethical behavior and decision-making in Buddhist practice?
Buddhism doesn't really deal with ethics that much. It's not an ethical religion. Because ethics are man-made. It's not that they don't have guidelines, but they have to be seen in the light of the ultimate truth. They're not 100% right in every situation. For example, you could say, telling a lie is wrong. But if somebody comes running and looking for him and going to kill him, where's 𝗵𝗪𝗀 say, I don't know, I haven't seen him. Is that wrong or right? Ethically, it's wrong. I'm not supposed to tell a lie. But I did it to save a life. Yeah? And what is ethics in some countries? In others, they don't care, you know. If you go to the Middle East, they have a strict code of dress. You go to Thailand, they don't have it. So what would be ethically wrong in, say, Saudi Arabia would be fine in Thailand. So it's not that one is right or wrong, they're just different. And that often causes clashes. My ethics are better than your ethics. I'm right, you're wrong. So Buddhism doesn't really go much for ethics. It's more for wisdom, how to see reality. Yeah? Ethics can make you uptight, and societies can be very, uptight and moralistic. Yeah? So Buddhism is not that influenced by morals. It's more about wisdom-based. But there are guidelines, of course, not to do this, that, but they should always be seen in the ultimate truth that nothing really exists. Everything is impermanent. they're never seen as dictates that are always right in every situation. That's not true. Okay? Karma is the law of cause and effect, so something will have a result. So maybe some people will do good things because they feel that they don't want to have bad result. So that could influence their practice. But that's, again, a relative way. Better to understand how life is. As I said, when we see how things are, we naturally will not hurt. Like the heart will not hurt the liver. It just won't. I mean, when you understand you're connected, you just won't, you know. So that's higher than say, oh, I should help the liver. Because at some point, there might be some dispute, and then you say, I don't want to help anymore, you know. But karma is the law of cause and effect, okay? And I'll go a little bit deeper on karma, maybe, because people misunderstand it. They think karma is like you've done something, now you'll get a result, 100%. But you can deal with it, you can dilute it, you can work with it, okay, through practice. So it's like you're sitting in a boat on the ocean, and a storm comes in. So you can't get off the boat, and you can't stop the storm. We say that's our karma. But how you sail a boat is up to you. Yeah? So kind of karma is not that rigid, you know. But some people, like you said, might think, okay, if I do a bad thing, I'll get a bad result. So it might change their direction of doing things. So in that way, it's okay, it helps. I mean, it helps people to do good action, good deeds, which is also part of Buddhism. But you should always see them in the deeper meaning that we are connected, actually. You know, how things really are. You know, so wisdom, I think 𝗧 𝗪𝗀𝗀𝗃 said, wisdom is in the driving seat of a car, compassion is in the passenger seat, and ethics and morals are in the trunk in the back. Yeah? So they're there, but they're not. The driver should always be wisdom. Yeah? What do you think?
Much also said, like, in the history of Buddhism, we have never, Buddhists are never interested in like making like social ethics or like something like code of conduct for like standard code of conduct for like if somebody had make this mistake, punish like this. Nothing's said like that. So ethics are always has to be like at the end, it's a method to realize the truth. So if the method, if it's relevant to establish the truth, then we can say that it's valid. I think ethics. No? So
everything should be nudging you towards the truth. Yeah. And so ethics are just there to keep a little bit. But he said Buddhists never set up social ethics or social rules. They don't have marriage ceremonies in Buddhism. They were not that interested in that. It's realizing the truth. When you realize the truth, everything will work. Sanity is there. Yeah.
What role does meditation play in achieving mindfulness and spiritual growth?
I don't think Buddhism talks about spiritual because we don't believe in a spirit. But if you're talking about awakening to the truth, then mindfulness is what cuts away the mud that covers the diamond I mentioned earlier. Yeah? Because our thoughts are what creates our thinking. It's our thoughts that say that's a mirage, and then I want to attach to that mirage. Okay? So, but between the thoughts, there's a kind of a gap, which is our nature. You know? So meditation allows that to shine through. Yeah? So there are different kinds of meditation. Shinne is more like watching, not reacting. Yeah? Looking at something and letting things go. You know, so you've got emotions, feelings. In Shinne, you'll listen, you'll watch your breath maybe. So whatever comes, you just come back to the breath. Then 𝗧 Vipassana, it can be analytical. You can look at what is creating the problem. It doesn't really exist. My anger, where is the anger? It's my thoughts, what I heard, the feeling. It's not really a solid thing, you know. So that can also help it break down. Yeah. So the aim of meditation is to get rid of the clouds, if you like, that block the sun, or to clean the mud off the diamond so that the blue sky shines through, or the diamond starts to shine. But the important point is we're not making the sky and we're not making the diamond. Those are always there, okay? This is an important point. We're never trying to create something. So from the point of before enlightenment and after enlightenment, it's the same. The same thing is there. We're not creating anything different, okay? Does that make sense? So this meditation helps you to get to that, to see the sky, allow the sky to shine through. You add? You did a retreat, you should know more.
Good example, Lama. My name is 𝗧𝗹𝗸𝗀𝗵 and I'm currently pursuing BA English Studies, second year. So there are two questions actually, but both of them are related, so can I say it?
Sure.
So my first question will be, will our bad karma really be diluted if we inflict pain and suffering upon ourselves? And is it right for us to blame everything on karma for every suffering and the bad things that happen in our life?
Everything comes from something before. Nothing appears from nowhere, okay? If you plant a seed, an apple seed, what will you get? Will you get a papaya tree? No. You're going to get an apple tree, okay? So karma is something like that. You plant a seed and it will produce a result. But it depends a lot on what you do. If you don't want the apple seed to grow, you can take away the water. You don't give it sunlight, okay? So it's not just totally that thing. There's also external factors too, which will come in, whether it ripens or not, okay? And you can also adapt it, okay? So you can think of karma maybe like a tall building, okay? So maybe on the first, second, third, fourth floor, everything you put is good, solid. Yeah? Then maybe on the fourth floor you put some cheap stuff. You cheat a little bit on the concrete, you put some, I don't know, foam, and then you go up 5, 6, 7, up to 100 stories, okay? So after that you do everything good, okay? But the negative, the cheap things you put will affect the next floor, and the next floor, and the next floor, okay? It's like a chain. So one day you have an earthquake, okay? So the whole building will fall, not only the fourth floor, but the whole thing will crumble because it affects right to the top, okay? It has that influence, but it needs that external influence too, which is the earthquake. So it's kind of like that. So yes, where we are today is the result of our karma. In fact, they often say, if you want to see the results of what you did in your past life, look in the mirror, right? You've heard that maybe, because that's the result of the last. But if you want to know your future, see what you're doing today, how you're living today. This is your future. But things, as I said earlier, are not solid. Things can change. Like we play poker, and we give out the cards, and you think, oh, I got such a bad hand, okay? You can't change it. You can't say, hey, excuse me, can I change this card? You cannot. That's the hand you got. But how you play that hand is up to you. You have that freedom to change it, okay? And according to Buddhism, the way you would change, or if you're in the boat, the earlier example, creating a good karma would be to help others, okay? To benefit others, because that's going against the ego, against the self, okay? So yes, I would say everything that is coming is the result of the past. It can't come from nowhere. Nothing comes from nowhere. Yeah? Everything is linked to a step before, like a chain. Okay? But you can manipulate that. So don't think, okay, I'm like this, that's it. You can work on your health, you can work on your mind, you can work on your situation, your poverty, whatever. It's not set in stone. Okay? Does that make sense? Anything?
I think it's
Was good enough?
Yes.
I passed. How many out of 10? 8? 10?
10.
10. Oh, good.
Lama, actually the first answer to the first question, so will our karma be diluted if we inflict pain upon ourselves? Not helping others, but then only inflicting pain on ourselves.
Yeah, that's also a kind of, killing yourself and doing these things is also a kind of hurting others, hurting ourselves. So yes, I would say so. Inflicting pain is also a negative karma. Would you think?
I think it's a strong negative karma in habitual.
It's a habitual thing.
Habitual thing.
So committing suicide, they say in Buddhism, will create a very bad future. It's kind of a killing, because our body, from Buddhist point of view, is a very precious thing to get. Because if you think of the billions and billions of life forms in the universe, little insects, the things, we can come back as anything. So having a human body is considered the best. And to hurt that body is somehow also not good karmically. So yes, inflicting pain on oneself is also considered negative karma. But again, these are not ethics, no? These are not talking about this is good and bad. but how we are seeing the world, how we are viewing the world. Okay.